All right, the property prequel, be in the know before you buy. Love a bit of Q&A here with the amazing Jamila. She's picked out 6 of the best questions from our Q&A box. And a bit of an Ask Matt series, a bit of, I don't know, I think there's a bit of personal property.
Yeah, there's a bit of
business,
everything.
which is always a bit of fun. Which will be good.
Exciting. It's good to be back. These are like one of my favorite little
Is it?
things to do on a Friday.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good coming into, obviously, I mean, this will probably be released new financial year.
Yeah,
so exciting.
true.
We're recording this just at the end of the financial year. So it's been such a big year personally and professionally, and same as yourself, Jamila, and we're just having a reflection. It's these little pivots in life where sometimes, you just need to stop and reflect before the next sort of pivot point, and then the next 6 months takes you to that Christmas time. So anyone out there, hopefully this one lights a bit of fire coming into new financial year. So let's go.
Let's go. Let's get into it. So from last episode, we had such good feedback as well.
Yeah, it's been cool.
So it was really nice to hear that as well. So we'll go straight into the first question. So top 3 tips for maintaining energy.
Yeah, love it. I truly believe everything is an energy game. I mean, how much I emphasize on energy. I do a fair bit of keynote speaking, and one of the keynotes I do is called the corporate athlete equation, and that equation actually starts at the very top with energy. And I wholeheartedly believe if I was to give 3, I would say number 1 is a time and energy audit. So what I try to help people with understanding with energy is looking where your time and energy goes, number 1. So a time and energy audit looks like this: red highlighter, green highlighter, or if you're doing it via your Gmail calendar or whatever, you can color it green or red. Go through your fortnight, have a look and label each individual thing you've got in the calendar and label it either red or green. Red is simply something that drains you of energy. Green is something that you feel lights you up and charges you up. What I find is kind of that 2 to 4 week mark is a good way to audit it because there's a lot more similarities. Then what you want to do, you want to look at your calendar from a helicopter view and have a look. What you'll find is it will be majority green or majority red. And a lot of people right now who are listening who, might do all the things we all know, exercise, eat well, have great habits, but they're still feeling like they're drained. I think this is a key unlocking pillar, is having a look what is draining you of your energy and time. So, you'll identify, what's green, what's red. If there's a lot of red, you need to start obviously injecting more green into it. But my biggest tip around red blocks is 3 things you can do with it. You can automate it, you can delegate it, or you can eliminate it.
Ooh, I like.
Automate, delegate, eliminate. So is there a process? What I found, for example, I remember there was a lot of things in the CRM and data tracking when I started that I just, I'm not a computer guy. I'm not a fan. And what I noticed was after working with our operations manager, there was a lot of things we could actually automate. So it took me out of the process. So when we click a button, it just happens. So that's number 1. We did that a lot with our CRM, and we still do to this day. Delegate is huge. So one of the biggest things that drained me was emails and bookings of calendars. Even people reaching out to me and things like that, even though I love helping people, it's hard to manage people always wanting your responses and things like that. So one of the best hires for me personally was like an executive assistant who could manage all of that. So straight away, I delegated it to someone else, all the red light stuff. And then the last one I think people need to take more serious is eliminate it. Like there's a lot of things we do when we actually peel back and think about it. Why are we doing that? Like, are we busy being busy? Is it just something, again, we're putting on the to-do list that doesn't actually align with where we're sort of going? So that's tip number 1 is a time and energy audit.
I really like that. I feel like so many people can benefit from that because people will be like, oh, I'm so busy. Like I've got so much on this week and chaos. And I feel like I hear that quite often, like one thing to another thing. And it's like you can actually bring yourself down to, I guess, being more calm and not in control, but just like have more of an understanding of where your energy is going.
Where it's going. It's awareness.
Having the awareness and being like, actually, I can get support here. So it's not as chaotic. And I think that's something that you truly do live by as well. Like you delegate, you do all of those really, really well. I've seen that in your
And it's, you're exactly right, Jamila. I think why I love the time and energy audit, it brings awareness, number one. Number two is something I like to call the 90-day work sprint with the 1-2 rule.
Oh, I haven't heard this.
Yeah, the 90-day work sprint with the 1-2 rule. What it is, essentially, I discovered it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I have not taken this framework away. I love it. It's changed my life personally and professionally. So if you look at a 12-month period, right, there's actually 4 quarters. Everyone knows that.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
So what I identified, and this may be my sport background, how I was wired, I've always, we had preseason, off-season, things like that. In the calendar year, there's 4 direct quarters, and those quarters are made up of 3 months. And roughly 3 months, 30, it's 90-day sprints. Within that 90-day sprint, what I do is I have an on and an off period within the 90-day sprint. Why I call it a 90-day sprint, it gives me that mentality of, all right, I'm going hard. And based off tip number 1, the time and energy audit, now all my energy is going to the right things. And I know I'm going hard because what I do is I allow myself 1 to 2 weeks off at the end of the quarter. And what I also do is I give myself 1 to 2 nights mid-quarter. So if you break down the 90-day sprint, we got 4 in a year. Within each quarter, there's roughly, if you look on it, it's perfect. It works out to like 10 to 12 weeks every single quarter. Within that 10 to 12 weeks, you want to break it up into 2. So for instance, a 12-week quarter would look like 2 blocks of 6 weeks. At the end of your 5 to 6 weeks, you do the 1-2 rule. And then at the end of the quarter, the next 5 to 6 weeks, you do the 1-2 rule. You might be asking what the 1-2 rule is. So I've got a 1-2 rule for mid-quarter, 1-2 rule for end of quarter. Mid-quarter is 1 to 2 nights at minimum 1 to 2 hours away. Holiday. So 1 to 2 nights at a minimum of 1 to 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So for instance, one of my favorite places is like Byron Bay. I like Byron. Brisbane, I stay in Brisbane a lot. Actually, just a cityscape. I really enjoy it. Don't have to get on a plane or anything. Just you can even drive. Sunny Coast, Noosa. I'm recording this on the Gold Coast, so I'm just giving sort of 1 to 2 hour radius. I know one of the mid quarters I had recently was Broken Head, just this random little camping spot. So stuff like that. 1 to 2 nights away, minimum 1 to 2 hours drive, whatever it may be. So that's mid-quarter. So you've got that thing to look forward to, just a little recharge. And then the 1-2 rule at the end of the quarter is 1 to 2 weeks, ideally.
Okay, I see what you're doing
with a minimum 1 to 2 hour flight. So this time we're hopping on a plane.
See ya.
Yeah, I got some nostalgia around airports and I love it.
Same.
It really fuels me, get excited. So for instance, literally as we're recording this, I'm on week 12 of the quarter. So I head to Queenstown for 2 weeks, literally on Monday. So that's my break. And then what I do is I actually put those little mid-quarter and quarter breaks in at the start of the year. So they're all circled. So I can literally see helicopter view. There's my mid-quarter, there's my end of quarter break mapped out for the whole year.
And then just quickly, you don't plan your holidays at the start of the year. You kind of just do it. You just know that within the calendar, that's something that you can plan to go away or go overseas. So it's not something you have to do all at the start of the year.
Exactly. And another one is if someone brings an option for a holiday or something, I'm really big on, allowing myself to say no. Like unless it fits my 1 to 2 week period, I generally will say no. The great thing is most of these 1 to 2 weeks literally fall on like public holidays, school holidays, Christmas time, New Year's. It's perfect.
So when people are on
It's the
holidays
best.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally changed my life. So then I know those, again, you break up the quarter into 2 quarters. Those 2 quarters, man, I'm going hard. But I've always got a rest period. Always got a rest. So that's the 90-day work sprint with the 1-2 rule. Life-changing. Life-changing.
I haven't actually heard you say it like that before, but I do it myself. And it is honestly the best thing that I've ever invested time into planning, because I was never really into all of that stuff. I just took each day as it came, each week as it came. And then you did teach me around this. And I think we started it 2 years ago, and it's been the best thing I've ever done because it gives me something to look forward to, something to work towards. And there's always that little bit of excitement at the end of each quarter. And that's what you need to
100%.
to feel. Well, I feel like that's what I
Yeah,
need.
it's scientifically proven. If you've got something you're working toward or excited around, it's so good for the brain. And there's so much science around experiences versus things.
Yeah.
Buying things, you get a quick dopamine hit, but then that dopamine hit goes down. When you plan experiences like travel, you get the dopamine hit of excitement leading in. You get the dopamine hit at the spot. I'm actually doing it. And then you get the dopamine hit of the photos and reflecting back on the experience. The memories, because it comes to an end as well. So that's why you get the 3-tier dopamine hit each side. So that's why it's scientifically proven experiences will bring you more happiness over the long term versus things.
I
So
100% agree with that.
if you want to, tip number 2 with the energy, try and have a look at investing more of your money, not only into things. Just try and swap it. Maybe you deserve a break. Everyone deserves a break, I think. And then number 3 for my energy tip and maintaining it is a common one, but it's literally changed my life, is a sleep routine. Sleep routine. Everyone's got a morning routine. We don't have to talk on that. Charges the day, start the day right, win the morning, win the day. I also believe now, win the night, win the following day. So I've put a lot more emphasis on a sleep routine. Mine simply looks like, dinner, start winding down, dimming the lights more, do a lot of stretching and try and put the phone away, things like that. Just relax, read, diary, those sorts of things. And then I've got one of these Garmin watches that, looks at your sleep score and stuff like that. Ever since I've implemented it, my sleep score's gone up, hence better energy. And I feel that probably is the key, in all honesty, is better routines around your sleep. So hopefully that helps. The time and energy audit, tip number 1. Tip number 2 is the 90-day work sprint with the 1-2 rule. And tip number 3 is this effective sleep routine. And to summarize it all, you really have to understand, you have to be able, or you have to know how to tap out to be able to tap in.
You have to know when to tap out to tap in. I really like that. I feel like I needed that. Good advice.
We all need to tap out to tap in, eh?
I think I'm ready to tap out.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Okay, well, that was some solid tips there. I really like that. I feel like a lot of people will take a lot from that. Should we go on to the next one? Is there anything else? Okay. So what have we got? What was the toughest moment or phase when you were starting growing the Srama Group?
Yep, Srama Group business. Yeah, we're coming up to sort of 3.5 years now. So I consider still in the startup growing phase. I can tell you right now, one thing I've realized is there's always different pain ceilings. And I've said this before in a Q&A podcast. I think I explained the emphasis around different pain ceilings. And I heard this from Dan Martell. You should definitely follow his stuff. But he talks around the rule of 3. So you'll hit a pain ceiling around 300K. Your next pain ceiling comes 3 times that, so around the 900K. And then the next one, around 3 times that, what's that, 9, 8, nearly 3 mil. So the high 2s, 3 mil mark. And then the kind of 9, 10 mil mark. Each one of those has way different pain ceilings you need to get through. So my real hard pain ceiling was on that trajectory from 6 figures to 7 figures. In the 6-figure phase, you're just trying to find product market fit. And a lot of people won't actually push through the 6-figure phase because they don't understand not only product market fit. So what that is actually knowing that there's a market for your product, number one. Number two then is understanding that most of your time, literally in the week, should just be going towards lead generation. And what I mean by that is finding the people who need your product. They are out there. You got to find them. All your time should be going towards finding those people, businesses, if you're in B2B, and then marketing to them. And that's it. So it's essentially here all the time. Sales and marketing will get you to 7 figures if you just focus on that alone. Where I hit a ceiling was that we were scaling quickly and we had product market fit. And, we were at a profitable stage pretty early and we stayed there. But what I identified was I, as the founder and the director, I was also the main income generator for the business. So if I was to get hit by a car or, Lord forgive me, not be here anymore or something, there's no more business. There's no more Srama Group. So I identified, I essentially bought myself a job.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will stay there for that period, which is totally cool.
Yeah,
so if you're someone who's right now thinking you want to start a business, right, you're going to go through the phase of where you're going to be buying yourself a job. You are looking for freedom and flexibility. You don't have either of them. You have to understand you need to create systems, processes, and put the right people in the right seats at the right time in the right roles. And there'll come a period where that will happen and you'll be so busy, run off your feet and frustrated that why I'm so busy, business is not for me. And then you exit the game, which is what a lot of people do. So that's where I was, and I had those thoughts. I had those thoughts of leaving the game of entrepreneurship because I was like, this is hectic. But then what I realized was that's just a complexity ceiling, and that's a puzzle I need to work out. Like a puzzle, there's always a solution. So I did study, research, mentors, all that sort of good stuff. And I realized I was the business. So I needed to create infrastructure around myself in there. So if you were to ask me when the hardest time was, it was understanding the penny dropping that I've bought myself a job. I am the business. If I go on holiday, sales drop. So now I'm constantly thinking I've got an amazing team and I've created good processes and I'm continuing. I want to get the 7 to 8 figures now as the next goal. I need to create better systems, and now I'm in the leadership phase. So I'm loving seeing the percentage of revenue dropping from me and it's spreading to other people. And that's the mission I'm on now, because that's what I call the transition from business to company. Different game.
Yeah, I really like that. That's very powerful. And just to touch on that as well, I remember that phase between like you were kind of going from being the only the business essentially, and you got to the point and you're like, is this worth it? Or like, this is really, really
tough. It's a lot of weight on one's shoulders.
Yeah. And just watching that and hearing and learning and seeing you grow and develop the business to where it is now with the most amazing team, it's very inspiring. So I remember that moment. So just to touch on that for that,
and it's
whoever
good.
asked that question.
And a lot of people will go through that phase. So hopefully if anyone's in that phase right now, it's okay. It's tough. Keep pushing. You just got to figure out the next puzzle. And if you're in the phase of you've got a team now and the pain point is you're running an adult daycare and it's stressing you out, realize that you're in the game of leadership now. You're in the game of being able to effectively get things done through other people with a common denominator and mission to get towards the same goal. And what I've identified to finish on with this question is you need to create a vision big enough that everyone else's vision can fit inside.
Well said.
That's the goal.
Very well
where I'm
said.
at now. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question around the hardest part.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that. All right. So we've got, how do you manage your personal property portfolio? There's a lot of P's in there.
Personal property,
Property
portfolio. Yeah, I love that. Love that. How do I manage it? Kind of going back to the first point again. Like, again, I remember there was a point actually I was overwhelmed with my property portfolio. Again, people always think the grass isn't always greener. The grass isn't always greener. Like people say, oh, I'd love to own more property and that. More property, more problems. Like, at the end of the day. So, but what I realized, again, if you just have to know how to manage things better. Like, don't be scared of it. Don't be afraid to build something. So, at the moment, I treat, probably this is number one, the mindset is whether you own one property or whether you own 100 properties, it's an entity and it's a business. Treat it like a business. I've gone to the point, I've given my property portfolio like a logo and a name and everything because it's a different entity to my business. So why that's important is every business, again, has structure, has team, has people, has processes to manage it. It's got a P&L, all those sorts of things. So that's number one, is have the mindset of you as a person doesn't own like, say, 1, 2, whatever properties. It's you as a person, but then you've got this property portfolio. That's a business. That's a business. So that's number one. Number two is then if you want to scale, you've got to have the right mentors and people on the journey. So probably the big three I find is my accountant, number one. Number two would be very savvy mortgage broker because you're in the game of finance if you want to scale a portfolio. And to be honest, number three would be solid property managers who can manage all the tenancies. I definitely do not recommend self-managing your own properties. Some people might do it if they got 1 or 2 or whatever, but at the moment we got 16 rentals. I would never manage any of them. No chance.
That would give me a heart attack.
There's the biggest thing I've realized as well is now I've been able to outsource administration duties of my property portfolio entity to someone else now. So bills are paid on time. Property managers don't talk to me; they talk to my assistant. Lease renewals, all those sorts of things get funneled through now, so I don't have to be on the front side of that because everyone stops again when they're building a property portfolio. It gets overwhelming, and I hear it all the time. So again, just like business, you need to build a team around the business, around the entity. And then the last tip is I love a spreadsheet, simple spreadsheet. Keep it simple. You can get analysis paralysis, but I've just got a simple spreadsheet. If you want a copy of it, I can give you a blank copy. If you're someone who's wants to build a property portfolio, all of my houses are on there. It shows the current rents, when the leases are up, insurances, when I bought it, current valuation, so I can always see my equity position. Super simple stuff, just high level. I don't look at it every day, maybe once a month, if that. So that's what I'd finish on, is get some sort of spreadsheet, simple, that you can just look at it from high level. Don't get analysis paralysis.
I feel like you're going to have a lot of people hitting you up for that spreadsheet.
Yeah, game changer. And I've got different things from everyone because it's what I struggled with. I could not find just a simple spreadsheet. I didn't want the ones that, you type this in and it spits out a number and I'm just basic. I'm not good at math and things like that. I just wanted basic just to see where the health check of the portfolio.
Of what's going on as well.
Yeah, if you're on the build phase of your portfolio, hit me up and I'll send it to you because I struggled. I just built my own.
Good on you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go on to the next question, which is a little bit more about your sporting career. So what was your favorite memory in your sporting career?
It's an easy one for me. I always say this, and I get this asked a lot, as does every athlete, your favorite memory and things like that. Mine would have to be my debut, my first ever game. Bit of nostalgia behind it. I'm from Brisbane originally. Anyone who follows footy, it was at Suncorp Stadium, amazing stadium in Brisbane. So obviously it's just a full 360, right? You grow up in this town going to Suncorp. watching teams play there, and then you go on your journey of life. I moved down to the Gold Coast chasing my dream, and then I ended up back in Brisbane for my first game with my two brothers there, and it was just an amazing time and experience. Someone actually asked me this question. I did a keynote speaking event in Brisbane, and Drew Davies is an agent up there, Place Estate Agents in Brisbane, and someone asked me this question, and then Drew actually asked me, he said, "Did you win that game?"
Oh, yeah, I've never thought to ask you that. Wow.
Yeah, and I said, "No,
Yeah.
I didn't, and I've never thought about it."
Wow.
And what he highlighted to the Place team in the building that day, there was a lot of agents in there and high performers, the emphasis of overcoming. Sometimes your biggest memories in life are when you overcome adversity, when you stick to a process, and when you don't actually focus on the outcome. Sometimes they are your most memorable achievements in life.
I really like that.
Loved it. And when he highlighted that, I said to myself, yes, the reason it was my favorite memory was it was the triumphs and tribulations from the age of 5 onwards. Thinking of the memories when mum and dad would come to the carnivals and Longreach, and we'd stay in a little motel or drive in. They didn't have much money, so we caught trains from like Brisbane up to Cairns. Stayed in a little motel, like just with a bed in there, and I slept on the floor. And mum and dad were just there, supporting the journey and things like that. So. Not making the rep teams and thinking my life was over because I didn't make Queensland or whatever it was. And then dad just always, just get up and keep going and keep moving. Times I was dropped from my footy teams, times I played really bad and thought, this isn't for me. Someone takes your spot and you come back and you're like, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. You get to sort of your teenage years, comparison comes in. You see some people already playing NRL and you're like, why haven't I achieved that yet? Just stick it out. And still to this day, that's what I believe is why it still is memorable. It's the 15, 16 years of ups and downs to get to one moment.
I really like that, and it really puts things into perspective. It
does.
Especially for people that, even you can put that into any situation, like
Anything.
Business, sporting, relationship, like. If it's something that, there's always going to be hardship and there's going to be things where you're like, why am I not there yet? I haven't achieved this. This is frustrating, but just don't give up.
Don't give up. And he made the good point, like in sales and listings in the real estate world, it could be, again, in business, that big moment in business, the most memorable ones sometimes aren't about the outcome. It's what you overcame in the process to the outcome. So, shout out to the Place Estate Agent, did an awesome keynote and they gave me a good perspective on that. And that, for that question. So,
well, thanks to them because that was really, I took a lot from that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's epic. All right, we'll go on to the next one. What's your thoughts on share house accommodation as an asset?
Good question. Look, I keep things simple with my property portfolio side of things. The reason I don't like rooming housing, so anyone who's listening doesn't know, so there's asset classes out there where you've got properties that essentially can room. Oh, you're right.
Sorry, I just sneezed and I really tried to hold that in.
This is a sneeze. You can
Sneeze-free
sneeze
zone.
all you want.
Sorry, I was like, I think I can get away with this, but then I also remembered it's recording.
That's all good.
Anyway, back to it.
Yeah, so rooming housing is essentially those. It's like, think of it like dorms, really.
Yeah.
They're like some investors will buy a house and then they'll build it in a way where you can rent individually in each room. So there's like 6 tenants in one house. There's a lot of legalities there. You got to have firewall checks. There's a lot of safety things you got to get run by council. Some councils don't allow it. There's a lot you have to go through, number one. So firstly, a bit more risk. Secondly, this is my big one. Yes, the cash flow is good. Like I'm talking crazy good because you're individually renting to so many people. But what will make you generationally wealthy in property is capital growth. So what I find is you really need to focus on owner-occupier appealed property. And if someone was to ask me, would a family with a high net income in a blue chip suburb ideally want a standalone home or a rooming house, which one would that family pick? They're not going for the rooming house. They're going for
definitely not.
the property. So that's where I see the rooming house, like accommodation, kind of lag a little bit, is in capital growth. Yes, it's good cash flow, but that asset is going to struggle to grow compared to just a standalone owner-occupying appeal property. Another thing is a lot of those rooming houses are owned by investors. They appeal to investors because it's high cash flow. The thing is, when you go to sell those properties, the asset is up against your buyer pool is pretty much just investors. And you're dictated by the rents of all the other investors renting them out. So again, it's very transient and things like that. So in a nutshell, that's my, again, not financial advice, my personal opinion is I'd focus on building strong asset classes first. Maybe if you want to diversify higher cash flow after you've built some really good capital growth, potentially you could do one here and there with the pure intention of cash flow, 100%. And then my last tip is I actually did this. I remember I got my first property. This might suit any younger people out there or people who might not have kids or are single, or maybe they're in a couple and they don't mind living with people. For about first 7 years, 8 years of my owner-occupied property, I got my first property only like 22. I used to rent the bedrooms out on like flatmates.com, things like I was a single dude. Like, again, probably if I had kids, no.
Yeah.
But I see some people doing really well with this. And why I love it is, yes, it helps offset mortgage repayments when you got your first home. It helps.
Definitely.
But the strategy I used to do was actually using the money that I'd get from the rooms that I rent out. I'd always focus on flatmates or something like that. Yes, you got to vet them, and yeah, there were some dud ones, and there were some good ones too, like some lifelong friends still to this day.
Very true. Yeah.
What I noticed is with the income that I'd get, I'd use that for discretionary spending. So what I mean is groceries, holidays, just stuff like that. I wouldn't let it, I guess, tie into my net wealth spending. So I always try to keep a clean book of spending habits. And then any income I was getting from the bedrooms, I'd use that purely for groceries and fuel and
just everyday.
Just everyday
bits
spending.
And pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I thought of it this way. If you've got a house in a high growth area with limited rental stock, which is pretty much, if you live on the east coast of Australia, there's a shortage of rentals.
Yeah.
If you've got a spare 1 or 2 bedrooms, like put it to
use.
You can put it to use. Yeah.
Some moolah there.
Crazy. But yeah, you just got to pick the right.
That's the other thing, right?
Person. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we could have a podcast on the stories
on the different
of
people you've had live in your house.
Yeah. Touch wood though. Nothing ever bad if you're smart with your character choosing. But and just a hot tip on that, if you are someone willing to do it, just make sure you meet the people in person.
Yeah.
Number one. Secondly, try and get a bond. Would be another one.
Great idea.
Second. And third is go the extra effort to advertise. Like if you go on Flatmates and whatnot, I always wanted to stand. I had bucket loads of inquiry because I treat it like a sales pitch. Like I had sick photos, location shots, description, all that, versus I look at my competition in the area, like they're just dark photo, 1 bedroom, like 1 photo and no description.
Bit off-putting.
You want to make someone feel like, oh, this is good. And then what I do is I'd actually pitch the rent up a little bit higher, so I'll get a better demographic of person. I always had professionals in there.
Very smart
kind of
idea.
thing. I wasn't looking for the backpackers, who've come over and 3 of them living in the 1 bedroom kind of thing. So just a hot tip there. If you're someone who's into that, make the most of it. If not, totally cool too. But that's my whole synopsis on the room sharing kind of thing. Yeah. If it's as an asset class to build wealth, I'd probably steer away from it, in my opinion.
Yep. Great feedback.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So for your last question, what keeps you motivated throughout the year of business? So I guess like you have those moments where you go away at end of quarter, and that would obviously help with motivating you through the year. But with business, it's such an up and down game. So what keeps you on the straighty 180, essentially, like on that path?
Yep. I guess first thing is it's not always easy. There are times where it's like you have to reignite your motivation, because one thing I'll tell people is motivation fades. Motivation fades. So you always got to remember that's not linear, the motivation curve. It's not just always going up. It's sometimes there's periods where it's down for a while and then you got to bring it back up. When it's down, they're the points where you got to think of what the purpose is. So one thing that has definitely changed my life is finding purpose beyond profit.
Finding purpose beyond profit. Okay.
When you're starting a business, it's sick. Like if you're earning lots of money, profiting, yeah, cool, this is epic, motivation. But there'll come a point where the money's cool, but it's not going to keep driving you. It really isn't. And I've learnt off some very wealthy people in business, like millionaires, billionaires, and all of them said the same thing. Like, doesn't matter whether you're earning 1 million in revenue or 100 million in revenue, the motivation fades. So what I've identified though, the best in business, they've all got purpose beyond profit. So for me, I had to really probably 3 months ago have a look at, all right, what's the purpose? What is the genuine purpose of why I'm doing this and things like that? And it's really ignited my motivation's gone up again because it's beyond myself now. So what I mean is, as you mentioned before, like I've got an amazing team, and seeing their growth is beyond myself. Seeing the clients and people we're starting to help week on week is a lot in the community. So it's having a genuine impact into the suburbs here on the Gold Coast. So it's always, but the thing is you have to bring those things to light. Otherwise you just forget about it. So it's finding those key things in your business, whatever it may be, that are, it's beyond yourself. So that's what I learned is the greater impact will lead to more income. So focus on the impact first, and the byproduct will be more income. I think people get it the wrong way around, where they focus too much on the income and they lose track of the impact. So that would be my biggest tip on there. So I think for the next sort of 6 months, we've got some now really clear, like BHAG goals, big, hairy, audacious goals. People's probably heard of that, BHAGs. 5 year, 3 year, I'm working backwards. And what it is, it's all centered around not so much revenue, it's centered around how many dreams can we fulfill. And that's really ignited me. And then even creating joy and fulfilling dreams, one property at a time. I can also relate that to my team. Create joy and fulfill dreams, one team member at a time. Because my vision and what's driving me now is I want to create something where if people coming in, they're going to become a better person. So that would be my biggest tip. That's really helped me ignite, because it is hard in business. You're always going to have, again, points where you're thinking, well, what for? The money's cool, but like it, yeah.
It fades.
It
that
fades.
Motivation for money.
It fades. So purpose beyond profit.
I love it. I love these Q&As. I learned so much myself. I could sit here and
awesome.
ask you, and ask you 1,000 more questions.
Yeah. No, I'm glad it's adding value. I enjoy doing it because, again, what I always hear is the more you teach, the better you become in self too. And these podcasts really give me introspection into, where I'm at as well. So, having a great co-host who asks us great questions obviously helps, but it's been good. So be on the lookout too, end of financial year, obviously into the next 6 months. I've got some cool things planned in the marketing space as well, collaborating with some great people. But if there are any questions, business, personal, profesh, whatever, keep an eye out for these. Probably once a month we do them. So send a question and we can do it. But as always, flick a message, DM, all them sorts of things if you've got anything on your mind. And as you said at the start, Jamila, really appreciate the feedback. It definitely, again, creates the purpose of even what we're doing now, right?
To help other people.
Help other people and get amongst it.
Love it. Thank you for sharing.
No, thank you. All right. Well, anyone who's listening, leave a review, feedback, whatever really helps, and stay on the lookout for next step.